Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Tuesday the 14th of September 2021. And earlier today we published our daily update, so please do not miss that. In this video, we're sharing an article with you which suggests that Europe, yes Europe, is the place where major investors are planning on placing their monies next. Why? Well, we shall have to take a look to find out. But before we do so, just a quick announcement that we have placed links to our most recent videos below, and also that this video is broadly a duplication of one we put out over the weekend, which did not get that much attention, perhaps because of the title, and it was called Where We Should Be Investing Now. So if you've listened to that one, you can comfortably ignore this one. If not, then we hope you will find this interesting, and that hopefully you will give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and press the bell sign so that you're notified of future videos. Meanwhile, let's take a look why Europe is the place to be. Forbes article dated 10th of September 2021. Headline: This is Europe's moment. Lightspeed Venture Partners hire Paul Murphy to lead Europe push, by Ian Martin. That's Paul Murphy. Lightspeed Venture Partners has hired Paul Murphy and Ross Mason to head up its push into Europe as Silicon Valley VCs step up the hunt for deals on the continent. The move from the Menlo Park-based VC fund, which has backed Snapchat, Affirm, and Epic Games, to put down roots in London comes as fundraising and the valuation of European startups have skyrocketed in the last year. Investors have ploughed over $50 billion into European startups this year alone, with the valuation of the continent's most valuable startup, Klarna, leaping to $45.6 billion in June from $10 billion in September. That shift came as investors stopped viewing Europe as an arbitrage play, with valuations typically lower than American rivals, and saw the potential for British and European startups to become global winners, says Murphy. This is Europe's moment. There are so many amazing companies being built right now by incredible founders, and everything is primed now, says Murphy. The question was not whether we should enter Europe, but should we go big? A generation of European founders who have built experience at or sold a business to a Silicon Valley startup, talented developers, and a huge albeit fragmented market was now driving the surge in valuation, says Murphy. Murphy led investments in Hopin, the events platform that skyrocketed to a $7.5 billion valuation just 2 years after its launch. E-scooter startup Tier Mobility and video game developer Clang after joining London-based early-stage investor Northzone in 2018. He also co-founded the video game studio The Dots, which was sold to Take-Two Interactive for $192 million in August 2020, and the GIF library Giphy, which was bought by Facebook in a $400 million deal in May 2020. That deal now faces being unwound by the UK's antitrust regulator. Murphy will be joined by Mason, who will be based out of Geneva. The British entrepreneur had been backed by Lightspeed at his cloud data startup MuleSoft, which was acquired by Salesforce in a $6.5 billion deal in March 2020. Mason will continue investing in cloud, software as a service, and fintech startups like ComplyAdvantage through his Dig Ventures seed fund and advising Lightspeed. We now have had so many unicorn success stories in Europe. There is more of that talent to run tech companies at scale, and that's helping fuel the next generation of companies be more successful more quickly, says Mason, Lightspeed's venture partner. When I told Ravi Mhatre, Lightspeed's managing director, I'm moving back to Europe, he said, let's find a way to work together. And that's something that's typical of Lightspeed. They are very collaborative. The two new hires fit with the dual focus of Lightspeed. Its founding partner's track record is anchored in a string of billion-dollar exits from enterprises and infrastructure plays like Nimble Storage, Nutanix and App Dynamics, while a more recent crop of partners like Midas List investor Jeremy Liu, James Mee and Nicole Quinn have invested in fast-growing consumer startups like Snapchat, Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop and meditation app Calm. Paul is an exceptional investor, and I think he deeply understands what an exceptional founder is and builds the trust with those founders, said Nicole Quinn, Lightspeed's general partner. Ross moved from the UK to Switzerland to really focus on European investing and advising other companies, and is deeply ingrained in the continental European ecosystem. Lightspeed's plan to open a London office has well been trailed, and has had a partner, Rytis Vitkauskas, based in the British capital since 2019. The VC fund has invested over 500 million in European startups since 2007, with second-hand clothes marketplace Vinted, HR software unicorn Personio, and grocery delivery startup Zap as standouts in its portfolio. We have always made the decision, if we go into a region, then we double down, we triple down, and that's exactly what we plan to do in Europe, says Quinn, who works from the California office, while the fund also has teams in China, Israel, India and Singapore. Lightspeed's push into Europe tracks with moves from rival Valley heavyweight Sequoia to expand its footprint in the UK and Europe. The Menlo Park-based fund hired Luciana Alexandru from Axel Partners in March 2020 to head up a new London office. That push has come amid a wall of capital from Silicon Valley and Wall Street, firms landing in Europe over the last year. That potential threatens some traditional European investors who cannot boast of the same network of big-name exits and international ties that can help startups expand into the US or Asia. Quote, "We would be crazy to try and squeeze out the amazing seed funds here. It's more us coming to the table to say we can add unique value. Perhaps you can make space for us," unquote, says Murphy. End of article. So as you can see, we have startup VCs, Wall Street investors and other Silicon Valley organizations all eyeing up Europe as a place to invest for the future. Well, you may be wondering, what has all this got to do with us? Well, firstly, anyone watching this channel should have a range of investments in addition to their gold and silver. Secondly, what this does tell us is where the big money and the seed money believe where the future lies. Not the United States, but Europe, London, China, Israel, India, and Singapore. Quite telling, isn't it? Now, it does not mean that the US is finished, far from it. It's still the largest by GDP, but its supremacy is slowly being eaten away. And certainly, though it may take many years and possibly a couple of decades, the future looks brighter elsewhere. It goes without saying, though, that if US companies and institutions ultimately control the capital, then they should also end up controlling the wealth that that capital generates. Whether that will be the ultimate conclusion, we shall have to wait and see. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell sign so as we produce these videos, you will be notified, hopefully at least by YouTube, that another one has come out. Not forgetting to give us a thumbs up if you like it, or a thumbs down if you don't, or at least a comment, which would be appreciated. Meanwhile, as mentioned in the introduction, we've placed links to other videos that we produced over the weekend, some of which we may duplicate during the course of the week under a new headline or a new banner, simply because we're finding that some of our videos, even on a weekend, which normally we have a higher viewing rates, some of the videos are not being promoted by YouTube. Not sure why, but that's the reality of the case, unfortunately. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, We are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.